Hi, hello, and welcome back. I am your horror hostess, Ms. Euthanasia, and I have been in hibernation. If you notice that I look a little rough around the edges, it is because I have just woken up. I only really find that life is worth living during the fall season. So I hope that your winter, spring, and summer was grand, but mine was very sleepy. Anywho, Sacrilegious Ceremony is back, and it'll be back every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Daytime for the rest of the month. You see, last year I decided that I needed something nice and special on my channel, and as I am very inspired by the previous horror hostess of other generations, I decided that I would too become one. Well, last year my setup was multiple movies being listed off to you for you to watch from each of the decades. This year I'm doing something different. This year I've done something with a lot more work put into it. It's like this. I've chosen one horror movie for each Thursday, and I go through the movie explaining it so you don't technically have to watch it, though you should, because it makes the horror hostess experience all the better, and I kind of review it and make fun of it, so it's a longer form video. But before I get on to actually becoming my horror hostess movie reviewer, I am first going to introduce you to my top 5 spooky season things. Top 5 horror movies, my top 5 Halloween TV shows, and my top 5 spooky season songs. And hopefully, this has given you some inspiration. First, we're going to start off with my top 5 horror movies. At number 1, we have Scream.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
It's obvious, I've talked about it before, I love the Scream movies. Specifically the Scream trilogy. Scream number 4 is one of the worst movies, not even just horror movies, just worst movies I've ever seen, right behind 17 again. I definitely think that Scream was made as a trilogy, and that's it. But I'm not going to complain that it's continued on, because by the time the 3rd movie was done, I don't think I was even born yet. And so the new revision in Scream that has movies coming out in theaters that I can go see now, I do appreciate, because I get to experience the Scream experience in real time. However, I will say, I heard rumors that the lead actress for the new Scream movies was fired because she outwardly supported Palestine, and that's horrible. I think Scream, you need to get back on the right path, check yourself, and realize that you don't want to be standing for what you're standing for. And that's a stupid reason to fire someone. That's a horrible reason, in fact. Get back on the right path. Scream was one of the first horror movies I had ever seen. I was 13 when I watched it with my dad, who is a Scream #1 fan, and have since put many of my friends onto the movie series. Not that it was some underground film that people needed to be put onto, but I was definitely a catalyst. And so maybe it was because this was my introduction to horror, besides The Birds, that my taste in horror is comedy first, scary second. And I mean, you'll probably definitely notice a theme with these films I will go on to list. Here are my reasons for why Scream is #1 in horror movies. I don't think I really need to explain myself, but I have to, because this is the format I've set up for myself. So first of all, this movie is truly just so smart and brilliant. I never saw any of it coming. I was always on my toes, and maybe that was because I was a new horror fan. But even going back and showing other people, they're all kind of bamboozled. Some people guess it, but they're never sure of themselves. And I appreciate that. It is very much a murder mystery, and it's mysterious. It keeps you wondering. It is one of those movies that I wish so badly that I could watch again for the first time, just to experience the true art of the writing. Also, I'm a huge fan of satire and irony. I love when this film turned my expectations around and satirized so many tropes and cliches we are all so familiar with. Next, I love that Sydney fights back and has me rooting for her, because I rarely to almost never get upset with the way she handles the situation, which is nice because I've been known to root for the downfall of stupid characters. When I showed this movie to my best friend, we were in fact screaming, clapping, crying because Sydney made us proud. I don't know, it just kind of, it set the tone and the standard for horror. So yeah, those are the reasons that Scream is my top horror movie. My second favorite horror movie, Fear Street. Don't you cry no more. Also a trilogy based on a R.L. Stine book series. I've never read the series. I was a Goosebumps exclusive kid, so I don't know how it relates to the books, but the movies were super fun to watch. The Fear Street trilogy, especially the first one, is extremely reminiscent of Scream. While it has some flaws, as well as moments of cringe, I think the whole trilogy is an extremely fun take on slashers. Secondly, the characters are gay, and in horror for a while there, gay characters were few and far between, and it's pretty good representation, although I think Dina was super out of line in how she handles her lesbian relationship with Kate. It's still really awesome to see. Mainly, I appreciate the third movie and how it dealt with lesbianism in the 1600s. It was a new take and perspective, not for history, of course, but for a horror genre. No one's really explored that in horror as far as I know of, and it was cool to see. I also liked the difference between the first movie being super 90s slasher and the second movie being super 70s slasher. My favorite part of the whole trilogy was the transition from the 90s to the 70s with Nirvana's Man Who Sold the World into David Bowie's original. While the movie, like I said, is cringe at times, ridiculous, and a bit on the nose, it has a great soundtrack, and I think that that can make up for almost anything in a movie. Twilight is my number one example, and I just really had a good time watching these movies. Number 3, not just a single movie, but 2. Sorry. The Babysitter.
How long do you think it'll take your parents to find your body down here?
When I'm talking about The Babysitter, I'm talking about the most recent ones. I watched it in 9th grade at the beginning of fall, and it has been my own tradition to watch it every year whenever I start to celebrate Halloween. You may be confused. Seriously, this is your third top horror movie? Yes, it is. I love how ridiculous and stupid this movie is, and I am a huge fan of corny horror, and this definitely falls under that category. The kills are so fun and bloody. The dynamic between the characters, especially the jock Max and the main character Cole, is always a good time to watch. They've got this older brother, younger brother dynamic that plays out while Max is actively trying to murder Cole, and I think it's funny. Once again, it satirizes tropes and stereotypes, which is fun. However, I do have to criticize these movies for playing into the racial stereotypes. There is no pointed take or commentary on the racism in the film. They just cast a black man and an Asian woman and made them play into their stereotypes. No irony in it, and I think that's boring. My take for films has always been, if you're gonna be offensive, at least make it funny too. And it's really not that funny. It's boring, it's played out, it's offensive, and it's not even funny. These movies have great soundtracks, which make up for any low parts of the films. And it is just so funny to me that Jenna Ortega's introduction as the Queen of Horror today was a movie where she starred alongside Bella Thorne. Number 4, Jennifer's Body.
And you're right, she is a virgin. And that beats sleeping with creeps like you.
I have seen this movie only 3 times, which is a low for my favorite movies. But I think of it so often. My first experience left me very uneasy and quite unsatisfied. It had weird vibes, kind of fever dream-ish, and not in a fun, quirky way, just kind of in a way. But then I decided to watch it again and was reborn. All that I was left with was definitely still there, but I was able to peer through it and see the pure gold. Once again, I am a sucker for sapphic undertones, and by golly does this movie have that. I love how girly pop this is for something so brutal. It is definitely for the girls. It's definitely for the girls and the gays. I think all the characters are perfect. It's kind of like Mean Girls, but if Mean Girls was a horror movie, I don't like Mean Girls, actually. I'm not a big fan of that movie. However, I like this movie, and I can't quite explain why. It's just always playing in my mind. Also, this is so 2000s. I love the emo. I love how they have an emo character. And I love Colin's fashion. He is a fashion icon, and every moment he was on screen, I just wished I was him. Yes, actually, I stand by that. Plus, this movie is funny and extreme and ridiculous and gross and girly pop and gay. And what else would I want from a horror movie when I showed it to my best friend? She didn't have the same appreciation for it. I can understand that because that was my first time watching it too. Watching it again, so good. So, that is why Jennifer's Body is in my top 5. Moving on to my 5th top horror film, the least horror of them all, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
We don't want to be any worry. Well, you got caught with a flat world. How about that?
The Rocky Horror Picture Show. Okay, the theme is definitely getting clearer and more pure. You caught me. I love corny, extreme, camp, gay, comedy, horror. I appreciate how this was made in the 70s with all its androgyny and breaking of binaries. And while the characters that are, out of the ordinary are evil, I still think it's pretty iconic for the 70s to even allow something like this. I don't know, the 70s were wild and free, but not that wild. Like, you act like this in the 70s, it's a scary place to be. It's scary. I'm glad I wasn't born in the 70s. Love 70s fashion, love 70s movies, glad I wasn't there. Plus, I love a fabulous, chaotic, evil genius that looks gorgeous and goth, and that I also feel bad for, that I have sympathy for, even though he doesn't deserve it. And that is Frankenfurter. The music is fantastic. It's a banger. It slaps. Another theme among my movies. They have great songs. And while this isn't a soundtrack, it is a musical, I also am a huge musical fan. I also love the culture around this movie and the live events that are held for it around Halloween. I have only been to one, but I need it to become a tradition. It is just so much fun. It's so much fun, and I love fun. And I don't understand people who don't like fun. This is fun. Just how could you not love it? I don't know. Even conservatives and homophobes like this movie, which gets on my nerves, because then I'm like, you can't be homophobic and like this movie, but they're out there, which just attests to how good it is. Mom, does it attest to that? I think so. I think if anyone can like it, it's probably good, right? I don't know. I am definitely no one special or unique with these top 5s. I very much am like other girls. These movies are loved by many and each have their own cult following. I do so often tell you that I love cult classics, and these are cult classics for a reason. And that's because they're good and fun and weird, scary movies that bring me comfort. These are also my comfort films. And I bet your comfort films are horror movies too. And I'm speaking to one of you very directly. You know who you are. Moving on to my top 5 spooky season shows. Number 1, it's pretty obvious. I think it'll probably be many of yours as well. And that would be Over the Garden Wall. I know every nerd ever watches this show every fall season because it's a classic. I was introduced to this show by my resident friends raised on Cartoon Network, and it's greatly appreciated. Like many cartoons, I can't believe that I didn't see it sooner, except for not really, because I was raised by PBS and Disney Channel, with a strict diet of which cartoons I was allowed to watch. But as I became a teenager, I discovered all the reasons Cartoon Network was beloved, and Over the Garden Wall is one of them. I still watch this show with the same friends that introduced it to me and my brother every year. First of all, The colors, the character design, the music, it's all so aesthetically pleasing. This show feels like a pumpkin spice candle, hot chocolate, and being wrapped in a warm blanket while leaves blow outside and branches tap on my window. I like that it's the length of a movie because it gives me time to watch my other top Halloween season shows. I like that I can watch it in one night, and I don't really feel the need to explain myself further. You know why this is a good show. My number 2. Okay, I ran out of space. My Babysitter's a Vampire. This show has existed alongside me since Netflix became a streaming platform and not a DVD distributor, or whenever it got added to Netflix. I had seen this series many times before I even knew there was a movie, and when I finally found out about the movie, it's like I had found the piece of my life that I didn't even know was missing. Despite it being a kid's show, it still hits so hard. Last year, me and my brother watched the first season over the October. This year, we're gonna watch the second season over this October, and I will continue to do that every year. I loved watching Buffy for the first time after watching My Babysitter's a Vampire for so long and realizing that so many of its plots were stolen from Buffy. I loved watching Twilight for the first time and truly understanding all the Dusk references. And it is just so nostalgic and fun, and I am pissed that there was never a third season made. Because what happens? No, seriously, what happens next? You can tell me. I won't tell anyone. Just tell me, please. Moving on. Number 3, Soul Eater. My brother was actually sold from Soul Eater last year, after I introduced him to this anime. I watched this anime deep in my anime phase, and going back, I wasn't deluded by my anime-colored glasses. This is genuinely a good show. According to the Reddit anime community, they also dubbed this a good Halloween anime. The character design, as well as the actual characters, are amazing, especially my favorite, Stein. Now, I won't say much about Stein, except that I love him. I was a huge supporter in the Spirit X Stein theories. You can't blame a girl for loving. I also really love Krona. As a 15-year-old queer person with great anxiety, I felt represented by them. Someday I will be them for Halloween, after my brother and I are Liz and Patty for Halloween. I also really love Death the Kid. I also felt greatly represented by him. Plus, extra anime bonus, no incest. Number 4, Scream Queens. I have only seen this show once, and I'm itching to watch it again. I'll probably watch it next Halloween. I love it because, unfortunately, I am a victim of Ryan Murphy. I can't help but love his shows. Yes, I am a Glee fan. I have an affinity for camp and slightly offensive but very funny horror, and that is what this show is all about. My cousin put me onto this show, as well as Buffy, so I must thank her for all her recommendations. I only watched the first season because I'm pretty sure the rest suck. Also, there are just so many iconic actors, scenes, and lines. And as a gay person, I am legally required to love anything iconic. Like The Babysitter, this show is definitely racist, and it actually has the Babysitter beat with some added ableism and homophobia. But unlike The Babysitter, I laughed. If you are gonna make something offensive, at least make it funny, and that is something that Ryan Murphy has mastered. Of course, many of the jokes go too far, and the stereotypes are a bit boring and lame and just offensive. But the show is often making fun of the stereotypes themselves, so I gotta appreciate it, but they definitely walk the line. Also, insane kills, that's always a plus. I did not guess the killer was going to be the killer. I'll be honest, it was a bit of a letdown of a reveal, but I was entertained the whole time. I really enjoy a good murder mystery. Moving on to the next show. Number 5 on my spooky season show list, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This show traumatized me. I am actively rewatching it and being re-traumatized. But it's fantastic. And once again, it's iconic, and I am gay, so I really have no choice. I love to see a strong female lead. a woman in power, a woman in STEM. I love to see how this show explores its complex themes of morality and trauma. I appreciate their appreciations for the gays. Though I did hear through the grapevine that their decision to add a gay character was because it was trendy. They did a good job. The representation still holds up today, and other than identifying as bisexual instead of a lesbian, I think it's pretty much perfect. I can't blame this show for the 90s narrow view on human sexuality. Plus, there's Spike, and I love Spike. So, moving on to music with 13 Tales of Love and Revenge, the album by The Pierces.
'Cause two can keep a secret if one of them is dead.
I know you know one of the songs from this album, and that is Secret. Secret, the opening song to the album, is the theme song to Pretty Little Liars, a show that almost made it to my top 5 spooky season show list, but just barely didn't. I also love The Pierces and this album because they are a sibling band. I myself am in a band with my sibling. Hi, are you looking for a new album to put into your Halloween rotation?
Well, yes I am. How did you know?
Well, good, because we are going to be just that album for you.
Really?
For Slughead has a new Halloween album out now. So make sure you go listen. It's gonna be fun and scary. The whole album has a very haunting folk-like sound that reminds me of fall. My favorite and the most spookiest song is probably Sticks and Stones. It also has a really creepy music video that's really fun to watch, so I definitely recommend that. But let's move on to the next. And my number 2 for top music for Halloween would be the album Viva LA Woman by Chibo Mato.
When a black cat crosses my bed.
I found this album because it was incorporated in Buffy. Really, only Sugar Water has any Halloween themes, but the whole album is very eerie, and it just reminds me of October for some reason. So it has become a part of my spooky music rotation. My number 3 is different from the first 2, as it is not an album, but it is an artist, and this is Jack Stauber.
I can make your teeth fall out. I can make you go blind as a bat.
He's a classic among the younger generations. A lot of his music was popularized by TikTok, and I am usually upset when TikTok gets a hold of good music because it runs it into the ground, but I can't say that I haven't found a lot of good music from the app that I still listen to. His song Oklahoma gets used every fall season for fall edits that people make, and I like every single one of them. Oklahoma, Deadweight, and T-Errors are definitely added in my fall playlist, among many of his other songs. Next we have the 2 songs, You're Dead and Spooky.
You're dead, you're dead, you're dead.
Love is kinda crazy with a spooky little boy like you.
The other day, my brother informed me that 2 of my most listened to songs in general, let alone during Halloween, had a relation. And I mean literally, the musicians that made You're Dead and Spooky were in a long-term sapphic relationship, and it is genuinely a very romantic story. I haven't done that much research into it, but just the basis of what I've heard, it's super cute. And it just makes the spooky songs sound even better to me. They are very much the epitome of 60s Halloween songs, the best of Halloween songs, and they are done by 2 women who were in a relationship during the 60s. Number 5 is the album Dead Man's Bones by the band Dead Man's Bones.
You look nice in a grave.
I discovered Dead Man's Bones last August when I was fighting my demons. The demons being trying not to celebrate Halloween in August. With Dead Man's Bones' help, I was able to manage through these feelings. I didn't question the band or the self-titled debut album that came out, or that it was their only album. Then I saw a random video pop up saying that this band was Ryan Gosling's band, the actor. This band consists of Ryan Gosling and Zach Shields. I don't know who Zach Shields is, but I know who Ryan Gosling is, and it freaking blows my mind that he was in this. It is a gothic rock dark wave album, according to Wikipedia, and all the songs are about spooky, scary, Halloween-y things. It is the most Halloween album, and it was randomly by Ryan Gosling. It's got a creepy children's chorus backing up most of the songs, and old-fashioned kids in old-fashioned Halloween costumes for the album cover. That's it! Those were my top 5s. What I watch and listen to over the duration of fall. Speaking of watching over the duration of fall, this has been the first episode of Sacrilegious Ceremony 2nd season. Join me next week in watching Troll 2. Oh my god! Maybe you want to watch it sometime before then and then catch up with the video. That's it for this episode. While this is not a cult, we do enjoy cult classics. I have been your host, Ms. Euthanasia, and you can join me every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Daytime for the rest of the month.